Hello everyone, this is Need for Travel channel, and today we have a new interview with Carol. She's from China, but she lived in many countries, and also she has been traveling around the world for 3 years. She wants to visit most of the countries in the world. Now I'll ask her questions, and if you want to ask more questions, you can ask them in comments. So hello Carol.
Hello.
So when was the first time when you thought about traveling? Did you think about traveling in your childhood?
Honestly, not that much. When I was a little kid, I traveled a little bit inside China, but I only really started after I left China when I was studying France. When I was in France, because it's so close to other European countries, and that time economically I also had more resources, which allowed me to travel. So I wouldn't say it started when I was a little kid. Yeah.
And is it common for Chinese people to travel around the world? Because we were in Sichuan province in China, but most people didn't speak English. It was difficult to communicate. So how do Chinese people manage to travel?
I have to say, in the past the visa was not easy. It's getting easier now, but because of the visa issue, a lot of Chinese people, they want to travel, they cannot, because they don't want to bother to go through the paperwork. But in the past 10 years, the visa policy became easier and easier for us.
Now you don't need the visa to Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly. It just happened recently. Yeah, I should really make use of that before it's too late. So I have to say there was a trend that Chinese people start traveling more and more thanks to the visa policy improvement, and also thanks to more resources, more money they are having now. So it starts happening now. It might not be the case 10 years ago, but now I know a lot of my countrymen, other Chinese friends, they are also traveling.
But do many people travel independently? Because I saw most of the people travel in big groups with families. Is it changing now, or still people want to travel in big groups?
It is slowly changing, especially if you look at the younger people. I would say nowadays the college student or those who just joined workforce, they tend to explore independently. But when you look at the older generation, older people, when they now suddenly have money, they still prefer to go with a group, which was guided by a guide. The guide will make their life easier, and they would also have language barriers. So that would be easier for them to travel in a group outside for the older.
But do you enjoy travel alone or with your boyfriend?
Yeah. So I did the 3 years trip, as I talked to you about it before. The first year I was doing it myself, and the second, third year I was doing it with my boyfriend. I enjoyed both way of traveling, because two together you can do lots of things that might be difficult to do it by yourself or out of fear or whatever. But traveling by myself, sometimes I also enjoy the different kind of solitude and feelings that I have. So it's different type of traveling. Yeah. But definitely that's my way of traveling, either alone or with my partner, but not in a group. That's not my type of traveling.
So what was your first impression when you just started traveling? Did you go to France? Was it the first country?
Yeah.
Was it a totally different world for you?
Yes, yes. I went to France for my master's study. That was also my first foreign country outside of China. It was a shock.
Very big difference.
Yes, it was a culture shock. That was 2005, so 15 years ago. 2005, when I first arrived in France, I was shocked by how few people there are in this country.
Almost empty.
And how empty, how quiet it is.
The Paris?
No, I arrived in Lyon. So my first 2 years study, I was in Lyon. And Lyon, most of the time you have literally very few people walking on the street compared to where I came from. But there was one exception. There was a festival called Lumière like the festival of the light.
Okay.
So that festival, I saw the most ever people show up in
Like normally in China?
Yeah, like
like every day in China.
yeah, literally like in China again. I was like, I was so happy. Finally, I saw lots of people again in France. So that was the first culture shock I got. So few people, so quiet. At the beginning, I didn't know how to appreciate, but slowly, step by step, I realized, oh, that's actually nice to have less people sometimes. Not so crowded everywhere you went. Yeah, so that's the first thing. And the second thing, of course, when I arrived, there was language barrier. My French was not good enough to communicate. There were a lot of difficulties when living there and studying there. Yeah.
Did you study in French or English?
French, yeah. In English would have been easier.
So how many languages can you speak?
Chinese, English, French. That's pretty much. Yeah,
It's enough.
No, I wish I could speak more, but yeah, I have enough energy and time.
What do you think about French food? Did you like
It was fantastic. It was fantastic. French food is completely different type, right? They are mostly fine dining. People put a lot of effort and time to make an art out of food. So it's different from in China. Sometimes we focus on the taste, but not how it looks or how healthy the ingredients is. Sometimes we just prefer the taste over the healthiness or ingredients. But in France, the cooking is an art. They want to make sure it's beautiful and it's healthy. All the ingredients are so good looking and so good taste as well. But while I was studying, I didn't have too much money to go to a restaurant. I tried maybe a few times fine dinings, but that's it. I didn't have more money for that. But the best French cuisine I had was at my friend's house.
Do you like this French cheese? This smelly cheese?
Yeah, I like it as snacks, but I can't eat it too much. Like I like French food, but I cannot eat it every day.
And what does your family think that you are traveling?
I'm the only child at home, so because of the one child Chinese policy, it was very difficult for me to leave the family, for my parents to accept the fact that I don't live beside them. Especially the last 3 years when I did my round work trip, my parents at the beginning was not very happy about my decision. It took me a long time to persuade them that this is the thing I want to do. I'm happy doing it, but there was a process. They slowly accepted. At the beginning it was difficult. Yeah.
And how did you decide to move to Singapore? Why did you move there?
Yeah, after I finished my study in France, I didn't feel like I want to work there because I miss Asia so much. So after I graduated from France, I also feel like the job opportunity would be better in Asia. So after I graduated, I went back to China. I started my first job, and it was a subsidiary under French parent company. So that company had office in Beijing where I started, and then they also had an office in Singapore. So another team in Singapore later on, they moved me to Singapore. Yeah.
So do you think that Singaporean culture is quite similar to Chinese culture? Because most people are Chinese there?
Yeah, there is the significant amount of similarity. That's why I like Singapore. I feel more at home in Singapore than when I was in France, because the culture is very close to Chinese culture. About 60%-ish of the Singaporean, they have some root in the Asian Chinese culture. A lot of them speak a different variant of Chinese. The food also similar. So yeah, I feel very much like at home, but at the same time, it's more international compared to other Chinese cities. There are Malay people, there are Indian people, there are expat international people. So it's more international compared to Chinese cities, but again, culturally very close to China.
And do you think that the different national groups in Singapore are very mixed? Because I heard that in every company there should be like Chinese person and Malay person and Indian. Is it true?
I think I heard about the residential quota. So in different area in Singapore, if you want to become a resident, if you want to become resident in that area, there is certain quota, racial quota. So they make sure that people live peacefully together. They mingle with each other, so minimize kind of the tension between race and cultures. I think on this regard, Singapore has been doing a good job because that's one of the few places in the world I saw people with different background and races. They really live very harmoniously and cooperate with each other, live like a family. So,
what's the most important reason for you to live in Singapore?
I think it's very safe environment. It's one of the safest country in the world. I could walk at midnight on the street with no fear at all, alone. As a solo woman, that doesn't happen very often. Secondly, the living standard is high, and the government also provides very good infrastructure, public facilities for normal citizens. So it's a very good environment for women, for family, for children to grow up, and the job opportunity also good because it's in the crossroad between the east and west. Yeah.
What about the punishments? Is it true that fines are so high in Singapore?
Yeah. You know very well about them.
Do you know any people who were fined for some reason?
Personally, no. But when I first arrived to Singapore, that was like 2011, 2012. I was not familiar with the rules about not speeding on the streets and not eating in the public transport. So there was once I was drinking a cup of Coca-Cola from McDonald's in the public bus in Singapore. Only after I finished my drink, I saw there was a sign on the bus, on the side of the bus says fine 500 Sing dollar if you drink in there. I was
the
like,
most
holy
expensive
shit.
drink in your life.
I was like, my whole bank account does not have 500 Sing dollar. If you find me, I have nothing. But the driver, he saw me. He was very kind-hearted to remind me that don't do this again. But maybe because you are new, so it's okay. But don't do it again.
Oh, it's kind of scary. And did you have any other interesting situations in other countries?
Our train ride in Mauritania. So it was a train going into Sahara Desert, and the train was not meant for people, for passengers. Was meant to carry the iron ore, like the mine, like the iron ore they mined out of the middle of the desert. But because Mauritania mostly made of desert, they don't have many roads. People tend to use that train as public transport as well to move people. And the train was very old. I think it was built like 70 years ago when the country was just formed. So it was funny because majority of the train only had the carriage for goods, for the iron ore, and only one carriage was offered to passengers, and that's considered luxury. We had to pay maybe about €4, $5 for the train seat, but that train was very worst and very bare minimum train I ever took in my life. So I can send you a picture later. So basically the seat had no cushion, nothing. It was a hard steel seat, and it was fully packed. When the train had no fixed time to come and go, so we just wait there for like a half
like
day, wait until it comes. Yeah, there was no time schedule. When the train came, it literally didn't stop. Just slow down until a point where people can get in, but it didn't fully stop.
On the way you have to jump.
Yeah, you have to jump, and also the train had the entrance of the train was when I was standing. The train's entrance was literally until here, and there were no steps to go up. So how am I supposed to get in the train from that entrance? The lowest point was till my jaw. Impossible. So,
and your luggage.
Yeah, my luggage, backpack, my tent, my sleeping bag. And there were crowds. People try to push in because they try to get in before the train leaves. Me with my boyfriend, my partner, was so funny. We couldn't get in. There were so many people, but they saw I'm a woman, so they kind of respected me to let me go first. And a few local, they helped me to. Some people pushed me from the back, pushed my back, and some people was pulling me from the front. Those in the train already. So by the push and the pull, I finally got into the train. But my partner was not so lucky because he's a man, so not so many people helped him, and he was falling behind. I was so concerned inside the train because there were full people in between the windows and the entrance between us. I couldn't see where he is. So I was so concerned that the train gonna leave with me, but without him. It was like, holy crap. We couldn't see each other. We just shout at each other, "Hey Carol, hey Thomas, where are you?" And when he replied to me, I realized, okay, he's still there. And eventually some local people still helped him to get into the train. It was crazy.
On the same wagon?
In the same wagon. And inside the train, there was even no place to put your feet because there were plenty of people lying on the floor, sitting on the floor. No matter where you put your feet, you're gonna step on somebody's body. So there was no room for you to move, no room for you to relax at all. So the whole journey was about 11 hours. I was all the way sitting like this because it was fully packed everywhere, on the floor, on the seat. No going to bathroom. There was no bathroom, no water, no food, nothing. There was even no light. We were riding 11 hours in the middle of the Sahara Desert with no light.
Was it hot inside
no,
the train?
It was actually cold at night because it was a night train, overnight train. And there was no window. So it was getting so cold, and all the sands from the desert came in from the window. I was wrapping my head with 3 layers. With my scarf, my shirt, my jacket, 3 layers. And I can still feel the sands in between my teeth. And 11 hours, I was not moving at all from my seat like this. And the train taking break very urgent and promptly. So whenever they took the break, the person literally jumped out of the seat and went back to the seat like this. Your butt really hurt because it was fully like steel, hard steel. It was like the worst ever experience I had. I was like, oh my God, if I knew this, I would not take it and I would not do it again. That's just kidding. But yeah, it was a very memorable journey I ever had in my life. I never took a train like this in my life. But also I heard some local people, they just get in without paying. And when the inspector came in, they would check. If the people don't have ticket, they're gonna kick them out of the train. Or they force them to pay, they ask them to pay. If you pay, okay. But if you don't pay, they would just force you to leave in the middle of the desert. That's what I heard, yeah.
I'm just curious how the inspector managed to walk inside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he has to ask people, give way, I'm coming. Yeah.
Crazy, incredible story. Like, if you think that the trains you've ever taken were bad, this train is worse. Now you know it wasn't that bad. So tell us about the story in general, about your trip, which countries you want to visit and where you have been to.
Okay, so compared to my boyfriend, I'm not such a savvy traveler because he has visited almost like 170 countries and
almost all of them.
Yeah. I mean, his dream is to visit all the countries in the world. So he's still on his way to achieve his dream. And before his influence, I was not even counting. I didn't care how many countries I went. But since he gave me this influence, I started to write down how many countries I've been to. And so in the past 3 years, when we did this round the world trip, I in total probably did 60. And on top of that, there were about 30 countries I did before that when I was studying. So in total, maybe 90 countries I visited.
Which country impressed you the most, or some, which was like very special for you?
The country that are very special to me would be the country, for me, actually have the least influence from outside, which preserve their own culture and custom the best. Sometimes for different reasons, could be economic sanction, could be political isolation, but somehow they are isolated a bit better from outside. So you got to see the authentic life inside and how they functions. Because nowadays the globalization, industrialization, modernization, lots of countries become more and more similar. I found the countries who are different from outside more interesting. So countries like Iran, Cuba. But I like different countries sometimes also for different reasons. When it comes to food, for example, Thailand is definitely my number one, although it became more and more touristy now. But for food, I definitely like Thailand the most. And for nature, natural beauty, New Zealand would come on top. But for the culture and the people, hospitality, I think the country I mentioned before, like Cuba, Iran, those are some very, very impressive countries.
And how do you travel? I mean, how do you told about the train, how do you usually move between places and where do you stay? Where do you eat?
Yeah, so we used very few flights, only between continents we use flight. Most of the time we were using land transport, especially the local public transport. We really like to travel like a local, so local public transport, like a tuk-tuk in Sri Lanka, public bus in Sri Lanka, or from Africa, sometimes we'll also travel with a local inside the cramped minivans, but from continent to another continent we fly. And in terms of accommodation, we use a lot of couch surfing because I met my boyfriend through couch surfing. One of the couch surfing events in Singapore, because in Singapore the couch surfing community is a very close, neat community. Everybody knows everybody. So we use a lot of couch surfing while we travel, especially in country like Iran. Because Iran, you can't easily find accommodation information online, and Iran people are very hospitable, so we had no problem getting our hosts at all. Otherwise, apart from couch surfing, sometimes we use hosts as well. We try to travel as low budget as possible. Yeah.
Do you hitchhike sometimes?
Yeah. I actually made a video about hitchhiking in North America, in Canada and the US. I posted on my Facebook and YouTube.
Which was the easiest country to hitchhike? And the most difficult?
Okay, so some Pacific Ocean islands were really easy, like Fiji, Samoa. The local people are really eager to help. Sometimes they go at the opposite direction. They even stop. They tell you, "Oh, sorry, I'm going the other way. I'm not going your way. I'm so sorry." Or they would, if their car are full, they would stop to say sorry to you. They cannot take to you. So those are really easy Pacific Ocean islands.
And what about the security? How do you manage to, do you do anything to protect yourselves from some unexpected situations?
I would say the first year when I was traveling as a solo woman, I was mostly doing Asia, so it was fine. I didn't have any safety concerns. But the second and third year when I was traveling with my boyfriend, I have to say lots of countries, if you travel as a woman alone, you might have situations. So I feel grateful that I was traveling with my boyfriend in some Middle East or African countries. Most of the countries were fine as long as you exercise common sense. You don't go out late alone into the dark area. That's common sense. Any country you don't do that, maybe except places like Singapore or Taiwan. But most of the country, you just do normal thing. Don't go extreme. There were a few places we feel a bit dangerous. One time was in Brazil. Nothing really bad happened to us, but the atmosphere just felt more intense. When the dark fell, there were very few people walking on the street. You can see that even local people don't go out at night. so we don't we hardly walk outside during the night in Brazil.
Didn't you have any dangerous situations during your trip?
Like the border between Nigeria and Cameroon. So basically there was a war fighting between some local provinces and the central government. In Cameroon there were English-speaking provinces and French-speaking provinces. So the English-speaking provinces, people feel like they are not getting enough benefit or attention from central government, and they are fighting with the central government. We entered into that zone, and so we had military escort because nobody was allowed or could pass through safely through that area without military escort. That was probably the biggest danger we ever had.
And I know that some people tell that after traveling they come back and they know more about their own culture, they learn something new about their own culture. Did you feel something like that when you came back to China, that you knew something more about Chinese culture?
Yes, you would put everything in perspective. So before you are kind of isolated from outside, you don't have comparison. But after you have gone outside, you saw different things, then you know your coordinates, you know your position in the middle of other things. You know how to compare, and you tend to have a better understanding of your background, where you come from, where you stand compared to others. It's like improvement of your understanding even about the same thing. You will look at it from different angles, different lenses.
And I was thinking maybe you saw many traditions in different cultures, and which traditions you think that they are so beautiful that you would like to inherit these traditions, or maybe some weird traditions, I don't know. Do you have anything in your mind about this?
Traditions, I don't know if it's a tradition, but I feel some of the things I saw in Africa and in South America among the Latino people are the things I wish as Chinese I could have that. For example, the energy and the rawness of dance to the life. The African people really have a natural rhythm for the music and for the dance. They can move their body so naturally, you know, to anything, any music that's happening, and they celebrate to life. They enjoy the life to the fullest. Even some of them are poor. They are living in not so good conditions. And in South America also, the Latino people, they really dance with full of the passion that they have. They don't care anything around them. They don't care about what other people think. These are the things, these are the attitudes I feel in China we lack, because we tend to be quite serious. We're very rigid. We are hard workers, hard student,
very serious
and good students, hard workers, very industrious. But in terms of enjoying life, having fun, and forget about anything around you, I think, yeah, this is something I wish I could have, I could do more.
And what's your plan for the future? Do you want to travel more? Do you want to go back to Singapore or China?
At the beginning, well, in March, I was thinking about going back to China after my 3 years trip to take a break and see my family. But somehow this COVID happened and interrupted my plan. I have been separated from my boyfriend since March, since February actually. So I think my plan is just trying to get back to him as soon as I can, no matter which country it is. Maybe not China at the moment, because he cannot get into China at the moment. Maybe somewhere else where we can both go and keep traveling a little bit more before we maybe find a place to settle and to find work.
Do you think of going to Ukraine, since you don't need visa to Ukraine now?
Yeah, that's one of my options actually. I'm considering Serbia, Ukraine, or Tunisia, but there are not many options at the moment. Yeah.
Do you know anything about Ukraine?
So far, not too much, except that in winter it's cold.
Yeah.
Winter is cold, and yeah, I didn't know too much about Ukraine at the moment, I think.
And which tips would you like to give to travelers? Like, what do you think is the most important for people who want to travel around the world?
The first thing is, many people think you need a lot of money to travel. That's not true. I just want to let everyone know that you can travel at any budget that you wish. There is different way of traveling. You have more money, you can travel more comfortably, or you can travel without any money, even by couch surfing, by hitchhiking, by volunteering. So there are many ways of doing it. So don't let that stop you from traveling. And secondly, my personal preference is to explore it independently. While you travel, you think actively. What you see, what you experience, how could you make an impact sometimes, how that would reflect back to your own background and make an impact to yourself and to the people around you. So actively traveling, thinking, not just like having a holiday, I think probably more useful to lots of people in exploring.
Do you think that travelers, after they get some experience in other countries, some knowledge, should they change the world after this?
I would say the traveler, especially the international travelers, could be, if they want, could be a very important pillar to make an impact. For example, in Caucasus countries, when I travel among countries like Armenia or Azerbaijan or Turkey, I know this country have a long history of struggling with each other, argument with each other. But when you travel to there, you will see the people from both sides as real human beings instead of abstract concept from your textbook. So you tend to realize both sides, the people, they love peace. They don't really want to have any fight with each other. They both have families. They both can laugh, cry, and go sad, go upset. They are all real human beings. So when you have such kind of understanding about real human beings, it's less likely to have conflict. It's less likely to have wars. So I definitely think the travelers would play a very important role in keeping the world safe, a safe place, a peaceful place, if they use their knowledge that they gained from their travel. They could make an impact, tell people, this is what I saw. The people there are also good people. There's no reason to fight with them, fight against each other. So yeah, this kind of impact I definitely think traveler could make if they want.
And what are things that make you happier?
That's a very deep question. What the things make me happier? The ability to choose what lifestyle, what rhythm of life you want, the pace at which you want your life to happen, work. That ability to choose, I think it's something that would make me happy. I'm happy that I have freedom to choose.
Yeah, thank you. Hope everybody will have freedom to choose your lifestyle, your way of traveling, and the country where you want to live, the people you want to meet, and everything, basically everything you want. Thank you, Carol, for sharing. It was really nice. Yeah, thank you. Hope we will meet again somewhere in the world.
Yeah,
bye bye.
Sure.
Soon we will have more videos with travelers, and maybe not only travelers. So subscribe to our channel, please, and follow Carol if you have.
I do have a website which I just started 3-4 months ago. It's called chasing193.com.
We will put it in the description. So bye bye. See you.
Bye.